Hi, I'm Christina and welcome to Soundwave TV, the evening edition. We're backstage at Brisbane Soundwave Festival, the lovely folk of Lamb of God. Now, do you have any fond memories? Because you were one of the big draw cards a couple of years ago on the Soundwave Festival.
My birthday actually was here on Soundwave, and the crowd sang me happy birthday 3 times during our set. It was pretty neat, as if to, I think they need to reinforce the fact that I was getting older.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
you can be an elder statesman of metal.
Yeah. Oh God. Have we reached that level?
Not quite.
I mean, we were hanging out with Judas Priest 3 days ago, feeling all young.
Oh yeah, my mate just saw them in Japan and said it was incredible.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Yeah. So Resolution, new album, interesting album. It's funny. One of the things that I was reading about was Mark was saying that Willie doesn't have a background in traditional metal. He kind of heard what was coming out of his older brother's bedroom. Do you think that's true?
I think out of all of the band members, Willie and I grew up mostly on more metal maybe than the other guys did. Willie probably got a lot of that from me, but I think Willie and I share a lot of that kind of old school speed metal kind of contribution to the band, where the songwriting that maybe Mark is referring to, we might be more influenced by the more progressive stuff that was happening at the time, not into the cheesy metal that was happening, but more into the guys that were really adept at their instruments. So
yeah.
we certainly bring that element into the band.
Yeah, do you feel like this record you've kind of gotten more experimental and more abstract than, say, before? Or?
Yeah, very much so. I think Willie is really a bit of an unsung hero on this record. I think he brought in a lot of the more unusual things that you might hear in this record than what we've done before. And that's not to say that Mark didn't have any contributions. Yeah. The songs that you would hear and say, yeah, that's Lamb of God, are probably the Mark songs, but I think Willie really helped us stretch out a little bit on this one.
Well, it's interesting when everyone becomes a sort of a bigger creative force.
Well, Willie not only just brought the more unusual stuff, I feel that this time Willie really came into his own as a songwriter. He was always a riffer before, but he really sort of got into structuring stuff this time, I think, and it was. I told him I was proud of him as soon as we were done with the record.
I remember you saying that, when Lamb of God were an instrumental band, you sort of walked in to a show, saw the band, said, "That's what I want to sing for."
Yeah.
How did you guys that sort of relationship begin? What did you think of Randy when
drunkenly?
We were all a mess, but I'm still probably the latecomer to that. When I'm on my airplane travels and when I'm at home listening to music, I really only listen to instrumental stuff, whether it be jazz or progressive metal and stuff like that. So I'm just, as a music lover, not a huge fan of vocals. So it's not that Randy did poorly or great when he came in. It's just my concept of the band at the time was very much in line with a lot of the bands that I really loved that were coming out of Richmond at the time, which were these kind of progressive math rock stop and start kind of metal bands, which is what I wanted to be. I don't think we would be anywhere near where we are today had we not added the element of vocals, whether it be Randy or somebody else. So, but initially it wasn't what I had intended for the band, but he wouldn't leave. So.
They wanted a hot chick originally. I heard that was the idea.
It's for a bit of a color.
But they got me. Yeah. Well, they thought it would bring girls to the shows.
Do you bring the girls to the shows?
Bring them to the bedroom, all right.
It's interesting when you see you guys live because you can kind of tell that foundation was laid down first, and how you integrate into it is sort of an interesting thing.
Well, it was still today, the music is written first, and typically without consideration of vocals. I think, it's come and gone over the career. The first 3 albums were very much written without any thought of how Randy was going to handle his job on it. And then we made a concerted effort to go in another direction where we paid attention to vocals first as we were writing the music, and that began to make itself apparent on Ashes of the Wake, and certainly on Sacrament, which was a very heavily, in my opinion, kind of vocally important album, where before the music was the important part, and to me the vocals were an accent. And on this album, on Wrath, I think the band kind of holed up and decided we were going to do an aggressive metal album and write both for the music and the songwriting. But I think on Resolution we really got over some of the maybe insecurities about being able to do that, and let ourselves be a little more free, both in writing songs that were written. Here's a verse, here's where the chorus is going to be. We might not know what it is yet, but this is designed for that.
Yeah.
And also write some progressive stuff that we knew wasn't going to match up A, B vocally, but we thought we could probably find some cool stuff in there.
A lot of the times when they write the music, and when I sit down with Mark or the producer, because Mark and I, figure out the vocals. Willie actually contributed a bit on this record. Very proud of him. But a lot of the times I have a completely opposite idea of what the verse and the chorus would be from these guys. And they're like, no, that's the chorus. And I'm like, really? I hear a bridge,
What are your favorite lyrics that Randy has written?
Reclamation was one of my favorites. It's a subject that I'm very interested in. I think there's a song called Hourglass that I like as well, on the new record in particular.
He doesn't know the lyrics.
I do.
I'm not in his mix. It's
Okay.
okay.
That's true. I don't listen to them while I'm playing, but we all go over everything, before it goes out. And I think there's a sense of hope through utter desperation in these lyrics, and I think that very much speaks to some people in the band very personally, and also the world state in general. So there's a theme. I don't want to call it a theme, but there's a running tide of things on the new album that me, as not having written them, not having been around Randy or said where did that come from, as a listener, the way that I've interpreted it is that sense of hope out of realizing there's an end.
Yeah, I mean, there's some political stuff on the record, A lot of it is about internal changes in my life,
What are the big changes you've gone through? You sort of embrace sobriety, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, actually, it's funny because, I walked past the hotel we stayed at the last time we were here, and I took my last drink in Brisbane.
Oh, wow.
16 months ago.
That's quite profound, yeah.
Yeah, Brisbane did me in.
Brisbane took Randy Blythe out of the game.
They did. Well, I'm not out of the game.
Yeah,
I just,
I'm the game.
I drink non-alcoholic beer now,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of that when you don't put so many, shots of high-level alcohol into you, you gain a little clarity.
Yeah.
And, also I'm 40. I'm kind of having 41. Whoops, I
Yeah.
forgot. I'm having a reverse midlife crisis. Most people hit this age and they want to get a fast car and a young girlfriend and all this stuff. And I'm like, I got to slow down or I'm going to die,
Watching Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah, no.
No, not that far.
No, I don't watch television.
No, well, that's good. It does
It makes
what your brain.
idiots.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the problems, really.
Yes, a huge problem.
TV show.
Yeah. Remember that, kids. Turn this fucking bullshit off. Read a book.
The internet.
Even worse. What is a big issue to me is the way that I see that the way the internet is shaping the way people communicate. And I think it's shaping it for the worse.
Well, there's a theory that neuroplasticity, we're actually being unable to have deep thought. The more we're bombarded by information, we can take it in, but we don't actually swallow it in any real way.
Absolutely. Everything's a soundbite. This goes back to the era of television, which, by the way, if you want to read a good book, it's called 4 Arguments for the Abolition of Television by a guy named Jerry Mander, and it talks about how your brain actually enters an alpha wave state, which is like, part of sleep, basically, when you watch television. You don't learn anything via passive osmosis, you know what I mean?
Do you feel as a musician you're constantly learning? Or are you just expressing?
Well, for me, I have to, both of which are part of my job. Being on tour and playing the songs that we've written for the album is very much expressing what we've learned. Yeah. Coming into this album, I wanted to push myself as a musician and not be limited by the tools in my belt that I've had on the past few records. So I know that we've done fairly well. I know that I don't need to go take drum lessons, but I did, and I went and took them with a fusion player and to learn some things that aren't necessarily metal and to maybe bring some different ideas into my thinking about how I react, what I hear when the guitar players bring in something, and try to get out of the standard.
That's an interesting approach. I mean, 6 records in. I mean, a lot of people, I think, get trapped in ego and don't think that they can sort of develop further and have the humility to kind of do that. I think it's an interesting sort of thing.
Yeah, I think we all have a bit of a pact that, you know, if it's not as good as what we've done before, or if we're not somehow growing as a band or players, then we should probably stop. I mean, I think we've done enough. We've proven what the band can do, and we could probably tour forever without having to put out any more records. But if we can offer something new and important to us, we should continue to do it.
What was like Virginia? Like you're obviously you know, buddies with GWAR and stuff.
Yeah,
yeah. So how? I mean, I was really sad what happened with Corey and stuff, and I didn't even know the guy. Like, what was he like? Like,
he was really sweet. You know, I did a couple of recording projects with him, and just to illustrate the way he is, I mean, we've toured with GWAR a bunch, you know. They kind of brought us up, as it were. They're like our older brothers. They're from our town, you know. But I did a track for a guy from Darkest Hour, Chris Norris. I did that with Corey at his studio, and he was a producer engineer as well. And then I did guest vocals on the Jamie Josta solo record. And Josta's like, well, you know, let me know, I got a budget to pay for recording time. And I'm like, okay, I'll just pay him. You can give me back whatever. And I went to Corey at the end of the session. I'm like, what do I owe you? You know, how much, you know, I think I was budgeted $800, you know. It was like, he's like, I wasn't planning on you paying me, you know, both times. And I was like, well, dude, I mean, it's your time. This is what you do. You need to get paid. And he gave me 4 songs that he was working on in a solo project. And he's just like, if you have time and you like this, man, you know, put some vocals to it. And I was like, sure, dude, you know. And I still have those songs. I've talked to Brocky and the rest of the guys about maybe doing something with that.
really cool.
You know, to benefit his family. He's got a kid on the way, or his wife does.
So sad.
But it was very sad, very sad. He was a real sweetheart. Nobody had anything bad to say about it.